Hey guys, Brian from Boas here. A few months ago I got a pair of snakes that was actually not boas, and I first showed you guys these animals about a month or so ago, and got a really good response to that video. And so I thought I'd give you guys an update on these animals. These are of course my Sri Lankan pythons, or known as Python molurus pimbura. And I'm really enjoying these guys. These were a dream species of mine. I wanted these since I was a kid, and they're just so hard to get. But I was really lucky to get this really nice pair. And these animals are now about 6 months old, and they're growing really fast. I'd say they're about 4 feet long right now. And it's just different from boas, because a boa this size would probably be about 3 years old, maybe even 4 years old for some of the true red tails, whereas these guys are only 6 months old. I would say they've probably put on about a foot or so since I got them. And you may even notice a difference from the video I did about a month ago. So right now they're eating large rats. And of course a large rat isn't nearly as big as it used to be, but it's still a good size prey item. I'm actually feeding them once a week. It's a little bit more, of course, than I feed my boas. But these pythons, they just grow faster, and you know, they can definitely put on the size and handle the extra food compared to the boas, which, you know, of course only eat about once every 2 weeks. And these, of course, are very closely related to the Indian pythons. Some people consider them exactly the same. Even though they were formerly classified as a separate subspecies, Python molurus pimbura, whereas the Indian python, of course, is Python molurus molurus. And then they're also closely related to the Burmese python, Python bivitatis, which was described as a subspecies of Python molurus bivitatis up until relatively recently. But these animals don't get quite as big as the Burmese or Indians, supposedly, but we'll have to see. Hopefully, I'm hoping they don't get any bigger than 10 feet. It's, you know, an 8 to 10 foot snake is probably the perfect size because it's big and impressive, but still manageable. My Indian python is greater than 10 feet. I'd say he's probably about 12 feet, and he's quite a handful. I actually tried to do a video with him, but recently, but it was a little bit too much, so I'm thinking of having one of my kids help me out with that video. But in the near future, hopefully I'll show you my big Indian python. But what I'm really enjoying about these pimbura, these Sri Lankan pythons, is they're definitely different than boas behavior-wise. They just seem calmer to handle. A lot of my boas are really squeezy, especially the true red tails, and they really cut off the circulation. And also some boas, they just kind of move around a lot, or they won't sit still. Whereas these Sri Lankans are really calm. They just kind of hang out when you take them out. They also seem really responsive, like they're really aware of what's going on, and they can anticipate. You know, they watch me through the cage, and they kind of have more interaction with the keeper. You can see also their body is a little bit different. They've kind of got more of a roundish body compared to the boas, which are a little bit more flat in kind of like a loaf of bread shape. What characterizes these pimbura from the Burmese and from the Indians is that the shape of their saddles, they have these really irregular shaped saddles. Some of them are kind of like an H shape, or they have like these extensions. You can see the H right there. And then frequently they have little dots as well. But the color is really beautiful. You can see they've kind of got this light grayish tan background color on the side, and then the saddles are this really rich chocolate brown, and this beautiful golden yellowish tan in between the saddles on the top of the body. Just gorgeous animals. Very high contrast as well. And I just really like these animals. And then of course they're also known as the pink-headed python. You can see this guy's kind of got a pinkish orangish head. I thought I'd do the video now. He just shed, and these guys, they look especially nice right after they shed, as most snakes do, but I think with these Sri Lankans it's really even more apparent. And these guys they shed about once a month or so, because of course they're growing a little bit faster than my boas. So we'll see how big this guy gets. You know, as I mentioned, hopefully won't get any bigger than around 8 to 10 feet, which is a perfect size for a pet snake. I'd say this guy, compared to the female that I'll show you in a minute, he's kind of got more the irregular saddle patterns that's characteristic of the pimbura. Another thing that's kind of unusual about this guy, both of these animals are not like defensive or aggressive at all. They've never struck out at me or anything like that. But when I go to pick him up in his enclosure, he kind of hisses a bit. I don't know if he's just kind of like checking me out or what, or doesn't know exactly what's going on. But it doesn't seem like he's going to strike at me. He just kind of hisses. And then when I take him out, he's much calmer. So anyway, really like these guys. Looking forward to watching them grow, and I'll show you the female next. Here's the female pimbura, and she didn't just shed. I think she's actually going into a shed cycle, since these two animals are pretty closely synchronized as far as to when they shed, and it's been about a month since her last shed. So she's a little bit darker looking right now. But the female, her blotches are a little bit more round than the male. And she also has kind of a more intense pinkish orange head, which right now, unfortunately, isn't really that apparent because she's probably going into shed. You can see her color overall is darker and a little bit duller than the male, but she'll look, you know, quite a bit nicer right after she sheds. But the female is pretty similar to the male, maybe a little bit calmer. She doesn't hiss like the male does. But, you know, definitely a smart snake. She really seems like she knows what's going on, and she can anticipate when I'm going to come pick her up and take her out. And, you know, very interactive snake as far as the interaction with the keeper. And as I mentioned in my intro video of these guys, these are the first animals I've gotten that aren't boas in, you know, about 20 years or so, and I've really been enjoying the contrast. You know, when you just keep one type of animal, you really get specialized on that animal, but then you kind of maybe get bored. You're maybe missing out on some of the variety of great reptiles that are out there. And of course, there's so many great reptiles to keep. You couldn't possibly keep them all in one lifetime. And so, like many people, I have this list of animals I'd like to keep. You know, I don't think I've ever written it down. It's more in my head, and it's constantly changing. But there is probably about 8 to 10 species on the list that I've been interested in for several decades, and, you know, definitely animals I would love to work with one day. So who knows? I might in the future. I may, if I get away from boas, or if I let go of a few projects and have a little bit more bandwidth, I might indulge myself and get a few more of these bucket list species. I'm not going to say what they are right now, but, you know, there's a variety of different snakes, lizards, and turtles that I, you know, would love to work with one day. And there's about maybe 5 species is kind of my short list of definitely animals. I could see myself making room for at least, you know, a pair or at least one animal. You know, I probably wouldn't get into any kind of like production of these types of animals like I'm doing with the boas, or I, you know, try to produce them every year or anything like that. But it would just be nice to have the kind of more variety of herps to enjoy. Not that I don't like the boas, and the boas are great, but there's a lot more reptiles out there besides boas. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed looking at these animals. Since they're growing so fast, I'll probably do another update in another few months, and they'll probably be quite a bit bigger. You know, it's great to have a video record of these animals, so a few years from now I can watch the videos and I can kind of get a record of their growth. Or you can as well if you're interested in these types of animals and you want to see how fast they grow. So I'll keep you guys closely updated on them. And as always, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to reach out to me. Thanks for watching, and enjoy your reptiles.